Hey guys, Nanman here, back with another episode of Modern Meta Breakdown. Hope you guys have been enjoying the series so far. I've been getting some really good feedback. A lot of people that have found decks or starting to get into Modern and really using the videos as a good resource for them. So glad that it's helping you guys out. This is one of the videos that people have been asking for. I've kind of been going back and forth between more top tier super competitive decks as well as the fringe super fun more casual decks for Modern. So I've kind of been going all over the place, and we just had a GP take place, GP Vegas, and figured, well, with the results, since people have been asking about it, this seems like the perfect time to bring it up. And we're going to be talking about Affinity this week, guys. So we got three different, slightly different versions of Affinity, if you will. Robots, whatever you want to call them there. So that's what we're going to be talking about. What are the cards that you need to keep in the deck to make it really the Affinity deck that most people know of? Where are the flex spots? How does the deck function? What might be able to beat this deck? Things like that. So let's go through and kind of go through the creature base, land base, spells, that sort of stuff. And then we'll talk a little bit more in depth about what the strategies are about it, things like that. So already showing off some of the lands here, but you know, it's Inkmoth. Why would I not show off Inkmoth Nexus for my poison side of things here? But no, we're not going to talk too much about all the lands first. Creatures. There's 26 in this deck, so that's what we're going to focus on first. You've got a play set of Arcbound Ravagers, very important for the Affinity-based strategy. A little bit more expensive, though, as a creature base. The deck is not that cheap when you think about some of the artifacts that are in there, some of the lands that are in there, but it's a really crucial part of the deck. And you can start out with budget versions and work your way up to the kind of tried and true Affinity strategy and styles, but Arcbound Ravager is definitely something to invest in if you're going for this sort of style. Costs 2 mana for a 0/0. You can sack an artifact and put a +1 counter on it. It's got modular 1, so that means it enters with a +1 counter. If it dies, you can move that +1 counter onto another target artifact creature. So this does go along with our Pierce strategy, which we'll talk a little bit more about soon when we're going a little bit more in depth about what the deck is trying to do. Does run 2 Etch Champions in here. I like the Etch Champions in the main board. This is, of course, our newer art of it. It's also got an older art. It's been reprinted a couple of times now. But Etch Champion costs 3 for a 2/2. You're like, well, that doesn't seem that great. But as long as you have 3, that's it. All you need, 3 artifacts, you have Metalcraft, and you have protection from all colors. So Etch Champion does count himself towards that Metalcraft. You might have one of your lands, like a Darksteel Citadel, which is an artifact, and then just one other artifact. Boom, Metalcraft. Achievement unlocked. So, like the Etch Champion, works really well because of the protection from all colors. He is unblockable, cannot die to damage. You choose to block a creature. Guess what? Etch Champion's not going to die. So, nice kind of great threat, great blocker, kind of all-purpose creature as long as you have that Metalcraft. Master of Ethereum in here, costs 3. It's our only blue creature in the deck. Costs 3. Power and toughness are equal number of artifacts you control, and other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. Yes, seems sweet. Like it. You know, it is also an artifact creature. So that does kind of factor into your Metalcraft, stuff like that. But this guy is kind of the crucial go wide strategy, help everybody out kind of thing. There's one more creature that is like the pinnacle go wide strategy style. And we'll talk about him later down the list. But Master of Ethereum, again, it's very common to see the Master of Ethereum in the main board here. I like the 2 that he is kept in here. We've got our 0 drops. Memnite and Ornithopter. 2 Memnite in this list. Costs 0 for a 1/1. And it's an artifact. Goes towards those Metalcrafts. Goes towards those go wide strategies. Ornithopter, again, we talked about those 0 costs. 0/2. It's flying. But Master of Ethereum and that one other creature that can help out for the go wide strategy works well. That evasion. Nice. Signal Pass is in here. Talked about those go wide strategies. Memnite, Ornithopter, Signal Pest in those first couple turns can get a little bit out of hand. It's a 0-1, so you're like, well, that doesn't seem that great. But when we're going wide and we have our Battle Cry trigger go off, that creatures that attacked with Signal Pest get +1/+0. Signal Pest will not get buffed up, but every other creature attacking does. And Signal Pest can't be blocked except for creatures with flying or reach. So there is that aspect in it as well. But you notice, like, if you're getting those Memnites, Ornithopter, Signal Pest in your opening hand, you're going to dump your hand very quickly. Big go wide style here. Steel Overseer. We got a sweet playmat that's running around Star City about it too. Or was. Maybe that was last season. I don't know. But I like the art on him. Steel Overseer costs 2 for a 1/1 artifact construct. Tap him and put a +1 counter on each creature. Sorry, each artifact creature you control. That is the stipulation. So it does get to kind of pump the team up. Boom, boom, boom. Everybody gets +1. That Memnite, that Ornithopter, that Signal Pest. Hey, we're going wide, guys. You're just going to get overrun by the amount of creatures that I've got out. Next, we've got kind of more of the Pierce style. Got the only Phyrexian creature in the deck here. Also could be paid for black if you opt for it, but really the 2 life is not that big a deal. Costs 2, or really costs 1 and 2 life. Simple and easy. For 1/1 flying lifelink. So that life that you just lost off Vault Scourge, very easy to get that back. I'm going to start gaining that life back off of it, especially if I'm going wide with Steel Overseer, Master of Ethereum. I'm back up to 20, no problem. So there's our creature base. Talk our lands. You see only 17, a little bit short on lands. Does not run fetches, doesn't need it, because we've got so many 0 and 1 drops in here, so it works out well. 4 Darksteel, Citadel, Indestructible Land, is an artifact, taps for a colorless. We got a single mountain in this list, goes along with the spells that we're running. 4 Blink Moth Nexus. If we're talking the pure strategy, Blink Moth and Ink Moth go really well for that. Those are the double man lands that this deck runs. Blink Moth can pull double duty, not only becoming a 1/1 artifact creature with flying, but it can also pay 1, tap, target Blink Moth creature gets +1/+1 until the end of the turn. So you have to switch gears and start going for the infect route. Hey, Blink Moth can get pumped up. I'll pump up this Ink Moth here. Sweet. And can do those sort of fun things. Glimmer Void is in this list as well. You can see only 1, and I think that is a really smart strategy, because there are times where you might get hit with a Hercules Recall or, you know, Shatterstorm, whatever it might be, to get rid of your artifacts. And if at the beginning of your end step, if you control no artifacts, you have to sacrifice Glimmer Void. So then you'll be stuck with, well, now I've even lost one of my lands. So I like that it is only 1 in here. Some lists are running more. Really just depends on how you're building it up with the flex spots and stuff like that. We've also got 4 Ink Moth, like I talked about. Double duty is a man land, and it's got Infect. So you can go, hey, you've got infinite life. That's fine. I've got another way to kill you. Then we've got 3 Spire of Industry. You can tap for a colorless, or pay a life and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Activate it only if you control an artifact. Pretty easy to meet those requirements, I would say. So there's our land base, 17 lands, pretty easy with those 0/1 cost creatures. We've also got a mana rock set up with our Mox Opal there, that if you have Metalcraft, just like with our Master of Ethereum, or I'm sorry, just like with our Etch Champion, we can just add a mana of any color to our mana pool. That's another big, expensive artifact from the deck that does increase the cost of it. Also is running a play set of Springleaf Drum, tap an untapped creature you control and add 1 mana of any color. So you can start off a turn, dump your hand pretty much, and a lot of Affinity players can be like, well, I'm going to drop down 3 to 5 cards in my opening turn, where you're sitting here in land go, or land, you know, Serum Visions, creature, pass turn, Thoughtseize Inquisition, where they're dumping their hand. Welding Jar is in here. I like the addition for main board. Definitely based on meta, based on preference here. Sack Welding Jar, generate target artifact. Single target. But if your opponent has these single target hates or removal spells that are going around, you can just save one of your creatures. Maybe save your Cranial Platin, for example. Which is key to our pure strategy that we're going for. Pay 2 mana. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. Cranial Plating counts towards that, as well as all those other artifacts that you have. You can also instant equip it, if you will, by paying 2 black and attach it to target creature you control. Equips for 1, attaches, equips at instant speed for 2. And with having Spire of Industries, you know, having our Glimmer Void, having our Spring Leaf Drum, having our Mox Opals, it's possible to be able to do this at instant speed. If we go move to combat, declare Bonkers, okay, before damage, I will equip or attach my Cranial Plating onto this creature that you did not block. And now, you know, here's a lot more damage you're taking. Then we've got our 4 Galvanic Blast, 1 red, deals 2 damage to target creature or player, unless you have Metalcraft, and then it deals 4 damage to target creature or player. Yes. So if I'm going for this go wide strategy, going for this pure strategy, and just chipping away at you, I can easily kill you off with a Gal Blast, or kill off one of your creatures that's in the way of me being able to kill you off. So Gal Blast makes perfect sense for the main board there. So got our sideboard. Going to ignore it for a second just to talk a little bit more about our go wide and pure strategy. So go wide here. Let's pull this guy up. Alright, and I'll pull this guy up down the bottom so you guys can see our 2 main things on opposite sides here. By dumping your hand, you are basically saying, I'm going to have too many creatures for you to be able to block. My Ornithopters, my Memnites, my Signal Pests, with the backing of a Master of Ethereum or Steel Overseer, just get out of control. And we see a lot of zoo strategies employ this, of saying, I'm going to just go around you, you know, Renegade, or not Renegade, Revolt Zoo, or Naya Blitz, those sort of stuff that's just like out of the gate super quick and just turning guys sideways. That's the kind of go wide strategy. But Affinity can very easily shift gears. Let's say you've dumped your hand, you're going sort of this style, and then your Master of Ethereum dies. Then your Steel Overseer dies. And now maybe you've put 1/1 counter on all your guys, and you're left with an Ornithopter and a Memnite and maybe a Signal Pest. All your good stuff has been killed off. You can kind of shift gears into these sort of strategies. We've also got our lands that we were talking about that can help us out later on, that can go into this pure strategy. Arcbound works really well. If your opponent is starting to target off and kill off your creatures, you can say, I'm going to sack them to Arcbound, make Arcbound bigger. Now that I know I've got evasion, maybe with an Etched Champion, I can be able to sack my Arcbound Ravager and put that modular counter, those +1 counters, onto Etched Champion, so he's pretty big. You have to be careful about that, making sure you still have Metalcraft, or Etched Champion's going to be in trouble. You can also go kind of that, I'll throw it on an Inkmoth Nexus, so then I can just kill you. Oh, you don't have any way to block flying? Alright, I'm going to swing in with my Inkmoth, and I'm going to put a bunch of counters on it. Cranial Plating works really well for that pure strategy of saying, hey, you know what, I can go really wide, or just really focus in on that one creature that I know can kill you. And having those evasions, having that sort of pure style works out really, really well. So that is the thing you have to be careful about, is a really good Affinity player is very adaptable to the matchup and to the situations that's occurring around them. Of like, okay, my go wide strategy is not working, we're going to switch it up, we're going to pierce. Okay, Pierce is kind of struggling a little bit. Let's see if we can get back to that go wide strategy. Different things like that, and kind of adapt to what they are playing. So, did want to discuss that a little bit more for those that are playing at home. Talk sideboard real quick, kind of what you'd expect to see. Grafdigger's Cage is sitting in our sideboard. Basically, those Cocoa-based decks, stops, all that kind of shenanigans going on there. Graveyard-based strategies also get shut down with Grafdigger's Cage. Double Etched Champion, 2 main, 2 side is pretty consistent, what you'd expect to see. Aether Grid's really nice. Tap, 2 artifacts, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So it can be a combination of, hey, maybe it's a little bit more control-y. Now later on, those Spring Leaf Drums, more Darksteel Citadels, things like that normally are just useless, now actually can deal 1 damage to you. This also works against, like, maybe a deck like Infect or something that's got those 1/1 creatures. Ah, I can start pinging them off and killing them. So we've got access to Rest in Peace, again, graveyard strategies, things like that. Want to hose them. Ancient Grudge, well, there's artifacts you want to kill, right? Well, you're playing a deck full of artifacts. There's going to be other people doing the same thing. So Ancient Grudge works really nicely. Also, again, something like Ensnaring Bridge or things like that, you can get rid of that. Dispatch is in here. Now, we've seen people opt for like a white strategy. Some people have opted for it the main board. I really like this card a lot. Does have that Metalcraft ability that you can exile a creature, basically path to exile without getting them a land. Otherwise, you just tap a creature. Both are pretty relevant when you're trying to go for a creature-based strategy to get in and get damage in. So, like that. Spell Pierce is in here. A Singleton. One Wear and Tear is also in here. Destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment. And 2 Thoughtseize. And this is pretty consistent among sideboards that you'll see. There are a few flex spots that you can do, adjust numbers and things like that, based on what the meta is shaping up to be and how things are going. But you can see pretty much access to almost every color in the sideboard. So even with the flashback stuff, we did have access to every single color. So that is the benefit of being able to have the Springleaf Drums, the Mox Opals, Spire of Insanities, you know, things like that to help you adjust your mana base, Glimmer Pool, Glimmer Void, things along those lines. So definitely really good. So there's our first list. Now the other 2 lists are very similar to this, but there's 2 other cards that kind of sometimes fall into lists and how people like to play. So I did want to highlight those other cards real quick before I talk about what could end up killing the deck. So again, Arcbound Ravager, cool. Etch Champion, this one's running just 1 extra. Memnite's in here, Ornithopter, Signal Pest, Spellskite mainboard. So really opting for a little bit more protection, feeling like maybe there's going to be a little bit more targeted stuff. Also can pull double duty against like Boggles, against Infect, things like that. Depending on how the meta is, you'll see some people opt for Spellskites in the main board. Sometimes they go 1 main board, 1 side. Sometimes they don't even run them at all. The first list didn't have any. This list is also running 1 fewer land, 4 Darksteel, opting for 1 island. You see no mountain in here, and there's a reason for that. 4 Blank, 3 Glimmer, and 4 Ink. So why is it running that? Let's see. Cranial Plating seems normal. Springleaf Drum seems normal. Gal Blast, okay, seems normal. Mox Opal. Wait a minute. Insole Artifact? Interesting. So this is a fun one that came out. Cost 2. Enchant Artifact. It's an artifact creature in addition to, you know, its ability to be an artifact. And it's a 5/5. So that Darksteel Citadel that's indestructible is now a 5/5 indestructible artifact. That Spellskite that you have, hey, guess what? Now it's a 5/5 Spellskite. That Ornithopter that you had, that's just an 0/2 flyer, guess what? Now it's a 5/5 flyer. Get ready. So I love the idea of Insole Artifact in here. It's really fun one. Definitely something that some people really focus in on. And if you are going for those kind of blue strategies, you do get access to additional sideboard stuff that you're focusing in on. You know, Ceremonious Rejection's a nice one. We see a little bit more counter magic. Spell Pierce, Spell Snare, Vapor Snags in here. Whifflare's a sweet one we didn't see before. 2 damage to each non-artifact creature. So again, you're fighting against some other go-wide strategies. Cool. Let's Pyroclasm, except for non-artifacts. So, enjoy that one. Also, this one's rocking out our Relic of Progenitus in here. So, you know, Insole Artifact is definitely a way to go, something to be aware of if you are fighting against Affinity. This was a list that did take 3rd place at the GP. And our last list, again, very similar to our other ones, took 4th. Arcbound, Etch, Master, cool, Memnite, Ornithopter, yep. Signal Pest, Steel Overseer, Vault Scourge, cool. All those make a lot of sense. What else do we have in the list that's going to be different? Back to 17 lands, opted for the island in here. You know, Spire of Insanity is back in here. We've got our Cranial Plating, we've got our Springleaf Drum, we've got our Mox Opal. Only 1 Gal Blast for this list because it's opting for a reload effect. Thoughtcast. Sometimes you'll see a combination between the last 2 lists, or some that prefer to go for this strategy over the Gal Blast strategy, which you essentially pay 1 blue and draw 2 cards. Seems pretty good when the first turn you're dropping down, you know, 3 to 5 cards out of your hand. To be able to reload like that is nice. Now, Affinity for artifacts, so this spell costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. Normally, it costs 5. But, as long as you have 4 artifacts, so your Springleaf Drums, your Mox Opals, maybe you have a Darksteel Citadel, and then just 1 creature, and then you can Thought Cast for 1 blue. Seems pretty good. So I did want to highlight that as well. You got to see Thought Cast a lot more based on how the meta shifts up, but definitely is a preference thing, and that flexibility in our spells more than our creatures. The creatures for Affinity are pretty much set in stone on what you need to run. You can adjust numbers slightly, but the spells are the adjustments. And you can see even over here, like Grafdiggers, Relic, Etch Champion, Aether Grid, Ancient Grudge, Dispatch, Stubborn Denial, and Thoughtseize. So the only new addition is Stubborn Denial, which you guys, if you've seen that Grixis Death Shadow running around, you'll know all about Stubborn Denial. But for those that might not be familiar with it, it costs 1 blue, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, counter that spell instead. Just straight up. So this is our Affinity stuff. Just so you guys know, it is that versatile, go wide, or opt for those pure strategies. Best ways to deal with it, you can go for those artifact hates. Most people should be running them in their sideboard. There's a lot of great ones out there. Red, green, white has some sweet ones available to it as well. You can think of Kataki for white. You can think of oh, now I'm blanking on the enchantment. It's like I'm bad at my job. Green's got the single target stuff, like Natural States, Creeping Corrosions. Red has Vandal Blast and Shatterstorm and stuff like that. But there's a lot of ways that you can shut down these strategies. Pithing Needle as an artifact actually works out really well against this deck because the key activated abilities can be Arcbound Ravager, you can call Cranial Plating, you can call Steel Overseer, you can call Ink Moth Nexus, Blink Moth Nexus. So if you have a couple of Pithing Needles, it doesn't hurt to bring those in if you don't have as much hate to bring in against the deck. Now, we talked about the deck can easily switch gears, and if you start Pithing Needle stuff, they could easily switch gears around it and deal with it if they're really good Affinity players. You have to be careful about those sort of styles of play. But I know a lot of people, once they get beat by Affinity 1 or 2 times, they find 2 slots in their sideboard at least to deal with it. Like blue has Hurkyl's Recall as a really good card, and I know it's been able to blow out a lot of Affinity players if they're not expecting it. If you're playing Merfolk, you have to run a full playset because you're not going to have access to all those other sweet ones that red, green, white has. So you guys have to keep those in mind when you're picking out different cards. Now, if you're in the strategy of black, you do have stuff like Fatal Push, things like that you can just start picking off their creatures once they play them. The disruption of their hand, that sort of thing. If you are running like Tron Eldrazi, you're pretty big. You've also got access to Chalice of the Void. You can shut down a lot of their stuff. You can name Chalice on 1 or 0, but you really, if you're able to, get up there and name it on 2. Arcbound costs 2, Vault Scourge costs 2, Steel Overseer costs 2, Cranial Plating costs 2. So that would be much more impactful than the ones on 1 or 0. If you can survive that long. Sometimes you have to be like, wait, I'm on the play, I'm able to drop it down, for 1. Cool. Like, I can drop it down for 0, and maybe you have an Ornithopter, Memnite, Mox Opal hand kind of thing. Cool. You can do those sort of things. But did want to kind of go over these different strategies for you guys sitting at home and what you guys should be doing to try to combat this powerful deck. Like, if you looked at the top 8, I mean, I showed you a first place, a third place, and a fourth place finish from the GP. They've also been hopping around some of the open events and stuff like that, so make sure you guys are kind of paying attention to how the meta is shifting so you guys can adjust your sideboard to deal with those decks the best. But that's going to do it for this episode of Modern Meta Breakdown. If you guys have not yet checked out our weekly coverage that we do, Modern Magic Mondays, both on Twitch and YouTube, please do so. You know, we are almost done with season number 5 here. We'll be broadcasting week 10 up next week, so like whew, pretty much getting right into the invitational side of things there. So if you guys have been liking this sort of stuff, please hit the follow, subscribes over here, youtube.com/nanman. I'm going to start releasing additional videos, maybe even some draft videos, some modern Magic Online videos for you guys to be able to enjoy. Pretty much all of the live action modern stuff is going to be focused on Modern Magic Mondays channel, so you guys can check that stuff out there. I've also been uploading new stuff at the beginning of the week. Beginning of the week is like our other gaming stuff. Been doing a lot more Minecraft stuff, Hearthstone stuff. You know, I keep talking about all these other games that we're going to be doing. Necromancer's coming back for Diablo, so I might be doing some Diablo 3 videos for that. So a lot of stuff going on for you guys to be able to enjoy. But again, thanks so much for tuning in and watching. Let me know what sort of decks you want me to talk about for Modern Meta Breakdown. I've been talking about a lot of them. If there's one that I've already done, but you still, you know, want more details, let me know. I'd love to discuss it with you guys in more details. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next game.